Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to episode 52 of Energy Speaks Back, powered by Hark Systems. And this is our last episode of the summer season. And we would really like to thank our previous 52 plus guests into their contribution into providing insights for energy experts around the world. Weekly, I present to you experts from around the world, and today we are in the UK. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. Energy Speaks Back is a platform I use to provide knowledge to other energy experts around the world. And it would not be worthy if we did not have our amazing guests that contribute to this knowledge. In addition, we have partners. And again, these are key because we need to raise the profile of great technologies and services. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our sponsors and our partners. Hark Systems, renowned for their energy software. EcoSync, who are a heating solution company. Alexis Energy, who are a power management. LED Vision, who provide LED and controls. Watts, who are a electronics and an EV transition company. And Black Carbon, who provide waste to energy. And I'd also like to say a special thanks to Esther Energy for their continued support and certification. My guest today is the sales director of LED by Vision. LED by Vision creates leading and cutting edge retrofit and full fitted LED lighting solutions. The business is built on three key principles: product quality, customer experience, and project delivery. So without any further ado, I give you Sean Costello. Good afternoon, Sean. How are you today?
I'm very good, Paul. Yourself?
Good. Yeah, very well. And great to see you. We're both in the UK. Whereabouts in the UK are you?
Sunny Basingstoke, Hampshire.
Oh,
I'm in the middle of the countryside, so it's nice.
Yeah, you get the sun more than we do down in the.
Oh, yeah.
So, Sean, you're one of our partners now, our sponsors for Energy Speaks Back. We're very proud to have you on board today. So thank you very much for supporting this. So, Sean, obviously we've been talking over the last 3 months or so regarding what we've been doing in your products, etc. So for the benefit of our audience today, can you give us some background to Sean Costello and what you do in your business?
Yeah, of course. So we're an LED lighting specialist based in Basingstoke, as we spoke about. Our specialism lies in the industrial and mixed-use commercial space. The last 4 years for us has been a real big push into smart buildings. So many buildings, or pretty much probably most industrial buildings in the UK are still what we would call dumb. Energy is just being consumed by everything, more energy. So what we've tried to put in place is smart control for our assets, which initially are now starting out to be lighting, moving into things like air quality control, humidity, temperature, but all managed and responding back to the customer can actually see what they're using and have control over it. So some exciting times for us. COVID's been good in a way because it's given us a year where we haven't been able to be on site, so we've been pushing forward, building our own PCB in-house tech. A really exciting move for us. We're going from just selling lights to actually having a piece of technology, which is raising our profile for our customers. As a small business, it's easy to get lost in you're just selling products from somewhere else. When you start to put a stamp and have your own branded piece of technology, start to take it seriously by some bigger players. So yes, it's been exciting year on that front.
So do you manufacture your lighting?
So we have, like most people, the design for our lights is done here. So from a point of view of the components, the materials, all the way down to the raw bits, metals and everything else, we put that spec together here, and then we have it assembled for us overseas.
Right.
That would be the same. Our smart controls are actually being designed and built here in the UK by high tech, but for the time being, we'll still be sending those products out integrated back to us here in the UK. The long-term plan will obviously be to have things built here. It's just, again, you can only do so many things. So as we scale up, we'll be looking to bring it all in-house. Just lead times, really. Cutting down lead times from 8 to 10 weeks to 3 is fantastic, especially for project management, where people want
And tell us about Sean Costello. What's your background?
God, a bit of everything. So always been business focused and oriented. Started out as a kid in a estate agency because I had a real keen interest in property. Did pretty well with that. Got a couple of properties under my belt. Recruitment in London. Been working for a fantastic firm that's now international. A big outfit called S3. Learned pretty much everything I could have possibly wanted to have learned. Very, very good people there. And then kind of just fell into lighting. I don't even know where it happened. I think I saw the movement. I've always had a energy saving focus, a bit of Greenpeace or whatever you want to call it. And I kind of saw there was an opportunity, I guess, no different to people in all the property market go up and getting into development. And it worked out. I had a couple of really great years that gave me the insight into the technology, working with overseas production facilities at the same time. So I kind of learned the production side and how to made. Then kind of took the big, horrible jump of doing it myself back in 2012, which I don't regret in any way, shape or form, apart from the endless pot of money that goes into starting something. But, we're nearly 10 years in now and we're building that brand presence.
So lighting for me does play a big part of energy management, because if you was to look at a property, it'd be say between 15 and 30% would actually be absorbed by your lighting load your energy load would be your lighting.
Mm-hmm.
And they're the key areas to start to focus on first of all. And what I like about lighting is not only are you making those energy savings, you're also providing visibility. There's a lot of energy management we do nowadays and it doesn't give visibility, and the client or the organization doesn't get the benefits of that, do they?
No.
I can make things go off earlier or start more efficiently, but they don't see that benefit. But you put the lighting in, it makes it look like you've redecorated the place.
Yeah. I mean, we tend to find that once people actually do make the move, not only is the area safer, because some of the environments we go into, no names mentioned,
you
can have 80 lux on the ground and forklifts flying around. And, for the audience listening, 80 lux is like walking into a room with one spotlight on. Just their byproducts, the health and safety paths on top of the savings and the carbon footprint reductions, the feel-good factor. I don't know if you get it, but when it starts to get dark out, I think I suffer with that sad syndrome.
Yeah.
Start to want to go to bed. I want to get into bed and have a nap.
Your melatonin kicks in.
Yeah, and that is the same in a poorly lit work environment. So there's a whole other kind of stigma that comes with it, where people are actually just a little bit more alert, a little bit more chirpy, and on top of health and safety, like I said. So there's so many things, and it's like you said, buildings. The electricity in a building through lighting is accounting for 15 to 30% of the overall running costs. One of the biggest hurdles for us with customers is they look at it as a light. Why would I change the lights? What's the point? If you actually went, well, let's convert that into pounds, they then go, but there's only one way to do that, and that is to have the visibility, and hence that's why the smart controls and building the tech that I mentioned earlier for us is elemental, because go in, do a pilot, show them they were using 100,000 kilowatt hours before. Look, we're down to 10. Saved you 90%. It's on the pad. It's showing it. Now let's do the rest of the building.
Yeah.
So that's the bridge in the gap. Is they believe they can make the money, but they don't trust the numbers that we're claiming because they sound too elaborate. 80%, 90%. Well, let us pay for the trial. We'll put one in. We'll prove it. And if we prove it, will you go ahead?
Yeah.
And it amalgamates the different tiers of management. You've got your guys on the ground, warehouse manager, you've got your ops director, you've got your finance director. As soon as you've got the conversation piece that all of them want to listen to, money, lighting, health and safety, you harmonize the whole system. So that's kind of where we're seeing the movement, so to speak.
Yeah. And so there's changing the light bulb, for instance, you're going to make a significant saving, but then you're taking it to that next level. You're going to start to control it. Now, I can understand from an organization's point of view, how do you justify that? It's very hard to justify, well, how many times that light's going to go off, or should go off?
Yeah.
How do you compare that? And that's always for me a bit of a journey when you're trying to sit down with one of
Yeah.
those. Do you use rule of thumb there, figures?
Yeah, there is. I mean, most of it more often than not is just simple logic. Imagine you've got a distribution center, an open plan goods in. Well, the chances of that area ever needing for the lights to go on, off, up, down, like you're in an old disco, is highly unlikely because there's always going to be bodies moving around.
Yeah.
When there aren't bodies moving around, guess what? You're going to want the lights dimmed down because there's no one there. Rule of thumbs are very rarely would you ever turn the lights off. So you've always got a base level for health and safety. 10 to 15% is more than enough. The tech that we're building, I can't speak for others, you can group the PIRs. So if you had an open area of 25 meters by 25 meters, you could break that down into two segments. The front area that's usually 8 to 5, the back area, which is 8 to 8, 24 hours a day, and zone them. So if the area that isn't working later after 5 p.m., but the other area is, that one will respond and turn down to 10, 15%. The other area will stay on for as long as it needs to. Hold time, 20 minutes instead of 1 minute. And every minute goes on, off, up, down, you're going to start to get that strobe effect and people are going to start hating it. If a room has been inactive for 20 minutes, again, likely it is, no one's been in it. So there's some real simple logic that you can apply to kind of make sure that everyone's happy. I mean, people have been using manual microwave sensors or PIRs for the last 30 years, and they don't have any control over them. They're 10 meters up in the sky. So if they're working all right, the ability to go on a pad and go, hold up, hold times of 7 minutes, they're not good enough. I'm going to increase that to 12. 6 months goes by, no one makes a comment, you've got your harmony. And that's before you incorporate daylight control. You know, if you've got ambient light where the light's balancing alongside occupancy, then really it's unusual you'd have in our experience.
I once installed, I'm going back some years now, and it's probably one of my funniest moments, really, because we had a multi-story car park that was connected to a hospitality area. And we put this, it was controlling fluorescent lighting, and we put this one in. It worked a dream. It was like magic. And each individual fluorescent light was going to be controlled on its own by its own microwave sensor, and it was brilliant. So we got this one working, tick, trial went ahead. So we then done half the floor. We done half this floor, and it was the microwave sensors started to communicate with each other light. So when they would come on, it was turning the other off or turning it on.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
We could have had the best disco in that area. It was just like a disco.
Bring some glow sticks.
So you had the little pop controllers on these, so you adjust the span of the distance and the range.
Microwave sensor,
yeah. And then we'd be up there for it'd take us an hour to get it all set up right, and then I'll walk all the way down and go and get the client back up, and he'd come up and go, right, and then we're now going to test it, and then the disco will start again.
Yeah, see that
disco without the music, that's the problem.
Yeah, we were silent discos these days, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's where the grouping of the PIRs works really well. The reality is you're never going to want one light working on its own. Obviously, you're talking about a project some time ago, and obviously you've learned from that
exactly.
one. But from our side, it would be if it was a lower level car park, call it say 3 zones. The first zone would work as one unit, not only for the fact that you haven't got that disco effect that you're talking about, but also from a point of view of there are like realistic and legal lux levels that are needed to be achieved. So one light coming on, giving you 6 lux on the ground isn't good enough. You need things to come on as a zone as well for safety, leading people to a wall of exit.
Technology, sometimes you can get carried away with it, and when that wasn't the perfect scenario. And what we should have had, as you explained, was zone it more, so that whole back should have been controlled by the one.
But it might be, it might be, Paul. It might be that from when that happened, that project, like you say, the technology might not have been there for the grouping. It may have been, I don't know. But the likelihood is, it sounds like that, it was very likely that you had independent microwave sensors and daylight control sensors. And the initial problem with that, with them turning on and off and up and down, is it's picking up the non-natural daylight from the next one pinging on to turn the next one off, or vice versa. So you get that effect.
Interrupting each other.
Yeah. But you can over-engineer things, and I think that's what we've tried to do for that year before setting up our own and building our own in-house. We'd obviously used and looked at others. We've stripped out all the fat, the bits that aren't needed, the bits that are over-engineered, the bits that when you ask a customer to go online and give feedback how many times they used it, and they go, I never even logged on. I don't. So why spend a shitload of money on something that isn't needed and there's a cost that you pass on to the customer when they just want it to work.
So LEDs, I've seen them evolve and come along a long way since, I'm going back to 2008, 2009 when we were I was putting my first LEDs in, and I started, they were on my radar. Have we seen saturation regarding the LED technology? Are we going to see any of that evolve anymore, or is it now purely focusing on controls?
I think the transition that I've seen back, because that was when I got into this market, 2009. I mean, back then you could an LED panel was about 250 quid, and that would have been a fairly good one, but not the best. Now you can pick up a relatively decent panel for £30. The technology has advanced to the point where, and there's actually a good question, we've moved into smart controls with LED and then moving into asset management long term, because the rubbish in the market, or the cheap and cheerfuls, is now actually good enough to last a decent period of time. Before, it would have failed in a year and a half, or degraded, or flicked, or strobed. But it's like anything, isn't it? The days where people didn't have bifold doors at home, it was in mansions. Well, now a 400 grand house has got bifold doors. Technology gets to a point where everyone has it because it's cheap enough to produce, or they've got good at making it. And that's the saturation. Is you keep trying to just sell lights, in my opinion, that market is going to become wobbling over pennies, because it will become a certain end of the market where people are just looking for the cheapest thing.
I always say my story about the BMS system. So back in the 80s, the only people that had BMS was the pharmaceuticals and the power stations. And then it was one building in every 3 in the commercial sector. Now every house has probably got a Nest, which is a form of BMS.
Yeah, exactly. And funny you mentioned the BMS systems, because one of the big flaws with them when they did get into it, every building, was the upkeep. It's like a Lamborghini. The cost of trying to actually keep it alive, the servicing costs on some of them are like 40, 50K a year. So we've gone into customers that have got sensors and DALI control, and they've got a plant room that's dedicated to the BMS that they've just never used for the last 10 years because they've just turned it off. It costs too much. So rather than actually trying to keep the actual intelligent building, it's cheaper to actually turn it off, because running it was costing them so much on the servicing. And I think this is the real, you mentioned Nest and Hive and those types of things. Once you can kind of retrofit smart controls into a building without this huge ongoing service cost, that's what we're doing with ours. There's no cloud, there's no service package from a point of view of you must pay this every month. It's all local controls. It doesn't even need an internet connection. As long as you've got, the way we've built the system on a radio frequency, is if the building's got power, you can still control everything and get data and make alterations to the building. So, and that's going into a building that might have a BMS, leave all the kit in there. We can just implement ours. There's just your iPad style screen. You've got full control from the click of a button. So again, technology advances. We've just tried to, I think, put it together in a way where it's very customer centric, where we're still able to operate as a business at a profit and gain a footprint in the market, but we're offering something to the customer with all the fat stripped off that still does exactly what they want it to, which is report, control.
You alluded earlier that you've started your base level regarding your lighting, and you're now going to start to layer that with different technologies. So what are the areas you're going to be focusing on going forward?
So we've been very fortunate that the team that have built the smart tech for us here in the UK, they're a bunch of whizzes. They, over the COVID period, or pre-COVID, were building air quality control sensors and volatile gas sensors that ended up going into COVID ventilated production rooms. Mm-hmm. That initial sensor, whilst it was signed off and was actually kind of part of the signing off period for these ventilated production areas, we've built the tech where instead of it being manual, sat on the wall on a traffic light system, what their sensor currently did or does, we're going to be bringing that on with an RF antenna that feeds back onto the screen. So if you can imagine a manufacturing or a factory that's got tons and tons of workers working on metal cutting machines, lathes, and you've got metal cutting fluids that obviously turn into vapor, gas once they go through a particular process. Mask or no mask, you don't know how much volatile particulates are in that room. So we'll be going into places. We've already got a couple of pilots signed off once the sensors are ready, where they want to put them around the machine to see what the volatile gas readings are, and that will come back centrally to the actual handheld device to basically say this is too good, or sorry, this is good enough, or this is really bad. The stage after that will be us having some form of IoT where we can plug some kind of sensor onto an extraction unit that might already be in place. As soon as that particulate level gets to a certain height, it will turn on. And as soon as it's cleared the room, it will turn off. And this all starts to lead down a route of maintenance. If things aren't being turned on 10 out of 10 power, components last longer. They don't need a servicing attempt. HVAC is a good example of that. So that's the long-term plan. Maybe a few years away from now, starting with lighting, starting with the sensors. But yeah, we've got.
So it's all remote monitoring. You can take this back to your central station.
Yeah. So the handheld device will stay with whoever. We can have multiple of them, but the likelihood is it's going to be a sustainability manager, an ops manager, or and that will sit on a screen, or we can have it embedded in a wall in an office so they can see the readings. The idea of the tablet, rather than having an online URL no one will ever go on, is that it's in your face. It's there, so you're aware of it. Similar to smart control in your house. You have it on the side, and you're constantly thinking about doing the washing after 6 o'clock rather than 3 o'clock. It starts to kind of bring that whole kind of energy efficiency thing into line of sight. But yeah, totally responsive for one handheld device. And from there, you can obviously access all of your historical data and make the changes.
So what are the sectors that you're focusing on at the moment regarding this product?
Yeah, we've streamlined over the last 3 or 4 years into anything what we call big sheds, your manufacturing, 3PL, distribution centres, anything of that nature. Still of course interested in office spaces, but we're just trying to do our best to get really good at one sector. We're fortunate enough that those sectors tend to be the biggest, the longest running hours, and the highest consumers. So in theory, one big DC, office spaces. So we've also tried to be clever on the basis of as we want to grow as a business, there should be a growth pattern there, because these are the biggest polluters, these are the biggest running costs, whereas their offices are probably a fraction of that. But by no means could we not service the key market, the sector we're focusing on, and what we've streamlined down to over the last 4 years is big shed manufacturing, 3PL, distribution centres. By no means can we won't focus on office spaces. They tend to be mixed use anyway. You've always got some form of office. The split is usually 80-20 or 90-10. Main reason we've done that is, one, the tech has been built around that. Our lighting solutions that we've got the best historical data on and the lowest failure ratings is all industrial-based units. And industrial buildings tend to be the highest consumers and the longest running costs, longest running hours. So in turn, they're the ones that probably have the biggest, definitively have the biggest bills when it comes to overheads for electricity.
And typically, Sean, what's the return on investment on your technology that you're working on?
So even when we're looking at just lighting, if you've got a building that's 24/7, 365, lighting, just simple lighting out, lighting in, you're still looking at amazing numbers, like sometimes under a year, sometimes as long as, but still really good 18 months.
Right.
As soon as we start putting the smart controls in, what tends to happen is you go from taking a saving of 60 to 70% from moving from old tech to just LED. Throw the smart controls in on top. Believe it or not, you get up to 85 or 90% through what we call control savings factors, ambient light and occupancy. Basically, lights don't need to be on as much or power. Add that on top of 70%, that we did last year, I don't think it's probably mentioning a large retailers, DC, as accessories. We saved them, I think it was just under 90%. The previous running costs were really high, and we brought them down to single-figure thousands.
Right.
That's
was that in their retail section?
That was their
warehouse
distribution centre for the UK. They've only got one here. It's about, I think it's about 100,000 square foot. It was a landmark project for us. We worked our backsides off for about 4 years to get that. And it actually it's a good topic to discuss, because it took 4 years because of the belief in the technology that we were saying was available. The tech was there. We were ready to go with it. But even though we had key stakeholders like the finance director, the facilities manager director, who became effectively good business partners, friends to us. You're on site once every few months, get to know people really well personally. But it still took 3 or 4 years to get sign off on it. There were other factors. American-owned business. There was a takeover a few years ago. Leases ending. They're all things that you forget about when you're trying to sell a product. Trying to find out why they can't do it for you. You want to just push. They've only got 2 years left on a lease. There's no reason they're going to put 200 grand worth of smart controls in. Yeah. So it's a little bit of do your homework first. But yeah, the savings there and were proven just under 90%.
And there's case studies around that, isn't there?
Case studies around it, yeah. We've got a cool video that we did for the building, which shows us walking around, lights operating, lights coming on, off, up, down, which I can kind of share with you.
Well, what we do when we launch this podcast, we'll launch all those in association with this, so people fantastic. Can see. Obviously, they'll be able to hear this podcast, and they'll also be able to find those case studies and the video that goes with them. So we make Amazing. Sure that we bring all that together. We send these out on a regular basis as well, so we link all that together.
Excellent. Yeah, the videos
for the benefits of the listeners today, they'll be able to go and get that on all the links that we provide on this podcast.
Excellent. No, the video is it literally speaks 1,000 words. You see it and you think, wow. And it's proven. It's not a we hope we can do. It's we've done it. The case study's there. It's written. It's signed off, and that's the hardest part. Getting that first one signed off by a customer. It's like when someone, when you were younger, asks you to have experience in something you don't, and they're only offering you 20 grand a year for a 30 grand a year job. Well, you need to give me the opportunity to do the job, to learn, and then I'll have it. But it's the same, I suppose, in all walks of life. Wouldn't be able to have done something without you having done it, but you might have the opportunity to be good at it. So that was a big hurdle that we got over, and is opening up to other big 3PLs and manufacturers.
So Sean, I've already alluded to this regarding my questioning. I like to put you on a semi spot because we've had some communication previously today. So, Sean, is there anything you can give back to the audience today regarding a takeaway that will really help them in their roles within this industry?
Yeah, okay. I mean, first of all, I feel we're showing our commitment to the cause by investing time and money into building our own piece of technology that's obviously tailored for the customer. And it's giving them back things that they're currently missing. So visibility of their assets, running costs, carbon footprint, emergency lighting testing, all automated. So they've got the health and safety elements all coordinated in-house. And I think we actually covered this earlier, but I said lighting is always overlooked. But when you convert these into money, which accounts for 15 to 30% of the building's running cost, it's a bit of a no-brainer. But I think it's just we're at an education point where people needed to have the ability for that to be proven. And I think that there is kind of what we really bring to the table, is not only just say we hope to be able to do this. We've already done it with a few pilots where we've actually said, let's come in, we'll do the pilot, we'll put the product in that area in for free. If we achieve 85%, you'll pay for the pilot and you give us the sign off. And people love it. And we did it initially with Claire's that way. The finance director, Stuart, basically went, if you believe in it so much, you pay for it. And obviously it put me on the spot, but it's my business, it's my money. I went, yeah, no problem. And he shook my hand and said, we've had some big players in, and every one of those that I've asked, they went, no, we can't do that. And that's what it led to. It took another 3 years. We did the pilot and we achieved 96.2% in that pilot area, just small area, 96%. And then they gave us the project 3 years later. And I think that all of those original things, basically, people just want to still deal with people. And I think when you get into this area of kind of selling a product, people forget to kind of get to know each other and actually tap into the benefit for you as the customer. You know, a lot of the time I'll speak to a facility manager, I'll go, surely you want this, surely this relieves a lot of stress for you. As soon as you start bringing those things into people's line of sight, they go, oh, actually, I might actually, he's right, I might push this now. I've got less work to do and I'll be doing my job better. So I think that's it, really. I think that's a key point.
This is why your company's called Led by Vision. The vision of driving.
There you go. It works now. We didn't know that 10 years ago. But it's worked out well.
Subliminally, the idea of that title of that organisation that you've set up has helped you get to where you are now, Sean. I'm sure of it. And I like the fact, so I've just written an article about guarantees, you know, guaranteeing your service that you're providing. Mm-hmm. And then also guarantee if it doesn't give the savings.
Yeah, 100%.
Us as energy experts, we've got to do that. We've got to get the buy-in from the organisation. Eventually, it'll be like pushing against open doors. But now, 100%. Currently, where we are, you know, through this current industrial position we're all in, we need to do that. We need to lead and, as you say, lead that customer down the path of energy management. So I do like that approach.
You'll love the name of the smart tech, enabled. And the idea is we're enabling the building to be smart.
Yes, I've actually seen that.
But the LED at the end. So, you know, we've done pretty well. I'm proud of those.
Is that you? Are you behind the naming?
Yeah. I sit there and beat myself up for about 3 days trying to come up with names that actually have a play on words. But yeah, it is.
I find myself doing that and I go around in circles, but it does come eventually. Names do come eventually.
Actually, Led by Vision, I think, was actually my sister. I think my sister came up with Led by Vision. Come up with the original logo, which was actually an eye. The LED was done in the shape of an eye. But apparently our digital guys said that people don't like that. They like plain text, so we moved away from it. But yeah, it was actually, I can't take credit on that one.
Best not, as it's your sister. I know what it's like to have a sister and her knowing that it was her idea. So.
She's sat in the room with me at the moment, so she can.
All right. Whoops. I wonder what that book was flying past your head.
Exactly.
So, Sean, look, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Great to catch up as always. I'm really looking forward for the tech to evolve and what you're doing with it. And, you know, we've got some networks that we're going to be working with going forward and really helping the energy experts out there grasp that and getting their messages out there for you. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you for your time today. It's been great to see you. And I'd like to say you and your family, please be safe.
You too. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for our special guest today. And thank you for our sponsors, B2B Energy, which can be found at b2benergy.co.uk, and Clean Energy Revolution, which can also be found either through various different social media networks. Type in #Clean Energy Revolution. That leaves me with one more thing to say. Be safe.